Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Deborah Shepard, and you were just hearing from Amelia Claywan with the South Bay Workforce Investment Board. Most of you know us, know of us at least. Our list of attendees is growing, keeps growing every week, and I'd like to thank you. I especially like to thank the colleges that are sending folks here. We have people, of course, from our West LA College BioFlex program. We have people from Foothill College, from Fullerton, from Cabrillo, and there might be a couple of others that aren't identified. And we have some guests from Bachem that are here supporting Chris, I guess. And some of our instructors from various locations. And we will introduce, is Karen on yet? Karen Martin? No, she's on yet. But if she gets on, we will introduce her as well. So I would like to welcome all of you again. Thank you for being here. We're going to start right away. You are all familiar with our three instructors because you've received the information about them. Hopefully you have already looked at their LinkedIn profiles, thought about some of the questions you might have for these folks. And we are going to save the questions for the end, but we are encouraging you to, as you think of something, or if you've already thought of a question you want to ask, please put it in the chat. Amelia will be monitoring the chat. She will kind of put the questions together so that they're organized and categorized. And if it gets answered during the program, then, she obviously will take it out of the queue. So please, your questions are very important. These folks are here to talk to you, to handle what is important to you. And just to go over the agenda, we're going to ask each of our instructors, we're going to ask them, when I'm done, we're going to ask them each to open their video, and everybody else close your videos if it's open. They'll introduce themselves. I'll go through the actual introduction in a moment. They'll then talk about the career pathways. What are the career pathways in the world of research and development? And how does that differ from being in a startup environment to being in a mature company environment? So we have a lot to talk about. We want you to get a really good feel for not only what it's like to work in these kind of environments, but more important, what is the role of research and development, and what are the career classifications, the career pathways that you might want to consider? So there should be lots of questions to ask these folks. Again, we're very open to that. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Angel, Anna, and Chris to open their screens. I'm going to close my video, and Amelia will probably close hers. And so you can put it on to speaker view so you're seeing the three of them if that is more comfortable for you. And I'm going to start with the first introductions. And what the introductions we're asking you to do is obviously your name, your current role, what your company does briefly, and how your position uses research and development in your work. And I know that's a huge question, but we're going to ask you to limit it to 3 to 5 minutes each but don't go into career pathways yet. We'll do that next. So why don't we start with Dr. Chris Martin, because you're the face that I'm seeing in front of me right now. So Chris, you're on.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Yep. I'm Chris Martin. I'm Senior Director of Production at a company called Bachem, which is located here in Torrance. Actually, we are a multinational company, so we have quite a few sites distributed around the globe, in Switzerland and here in California, as well as in the UK and in Japan. And we produce active pharmaceutical ingredients. So these are basically the ingredients inside the medication, which gives medication the properties that are required to cure the illness for which the medication is taken. So you will not see our name in the pharmacy, and this is because we are not the actual manufacturer of the drug that you can buy in the pharmacy, but we are we make the ingredients. So the pharmaceutical companies buy the ingredients from us, and then they put them as a material into the drugs that they manufacture. So if you see ads on TV with from other companies, then possibly these contain some of the pharmaceuticals that we actually manufacture here. So this is a great opportunity to talk about research and development, because we've been over the past 2 years following research and development in the pharmaceutical field very closely, mostly related to vaccines. So I might be able to go into that a bit as well, and just talk about how research and development is done in a pharmaceutical setting in order to stay on top of these new emerging diseases and existing diseases. One thing that's important to me to start off, and this is maybe also something where the others of today's speakers might have a slightly different opinion about, is that we use these two terms actually. One is research and one is development. So the term, how I would define research and how we do it at this company, is everything that has got to do with like fundamental research, which is about asking questions, doing experiments, and solving fundamental scientific questions. Whereas development is taking these results, which come from fundamental research, and actually developing products out of this. So this is something that I will focus in in my part of this session.
Fabulous. Thank you. That was a great overview. And I had asked Chris to have Bachem in the background. So you're getting a few pictures there that will give you a little bit about life at Bachem. And Bachem is located in Torrance and in Vista for the United States. And they're actually a Swiss company, just so you all know that. Great. Anna, is the cat still there?
I have one on each side. I've got one right there and right there. So you'll see them walking by.
Great. Please introduce yourself.
So very nice to be here with you guys tonight. Excited to talk to you. My name is Anna Skaya. I am the founder and CEO of Basepaws. The cats are not here accidentally. Basepaws is an animal health company. We're based in Torrance as well. So being an animal health company means that we focus on the healthcare and the well-being of companion animals. Animal health can also refer to farm animals, which we don't do. And we do genetic testing and microbiome testing for companion animals. We're very much a startup. We're a 15-person company. And when we first started, we were lovingly referred to as 23andMeow. That gives you an idea of the kind of company that this originally was. The first rule of startups is things change very quickly. We initially launched as a 23andMe for pets, and we've since then, because of our R&D efforts, been able to expand into.
Oh, no, you can take it.
Yeah, thanks. We've been able to expand into many other additional tests, screening tools, and ways for you as what we call a pet parent to really take care of your pet. Our company has an office and a laboratory at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. If you're based here locally in Los Angeles, you know where that is. I would love to share today how R&D drives this ebb and flow of a startup, why we're launching in Los Angeles, and there's this term called Long LA. We're huge believers that biotech and life science companies are here in LA to stay. This can get annoying really quick. And I very rarely get a chance to emphasize our R&D work. So I'm really excited today to talk to you about what is it about research that helps a startup become a successful business. Because in life sciences, you can talk about the people and you can talk about the culture and you can talk about timing and market, but really it's the product The product is what makes a successful startup. And in our cases, it really ties to R&D. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Angel, please introduce yourself. Another startup.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angel Gonzalez. I am one of the scientists at Cradle Genomics. We specialize in prenatal diagnostics, and one of the big driving factors, as Anna alluded earlier, was impacting just health in general, and specifically in this case, it's for pregnant women and their unborn child. And so I joined Cradle mainly to help drive their research and development area. And it's been kind of similar to also Basepaws in size. We're around 20 employees. And research and development, similar to how it was mentioned earlier, are two very different aspects of the company. Research kind of dives into more of the deeper questions, into some of the problems, outstanding problems that we have ongoing in our company. So if things don't, as a startup, there's a lot of things that aren't working optimally. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we, why isn't some of our processes working as we expect them? And so research helps probe into why, the question of why and how we can improve our process to a point that we can get it out in the market in a reliable way. So one of the bigger, we can touch upon why I chose to work in more of industry than academia is usually I like building things and I like applying science to build something that will impact someone's health. And so when we are asking ourselves why things aren't working the way they are, we're always looking in the context of when this product is out in the market, we want it to be as reliable and as informative to anyone that is going to be able to use our products. So that's really the very basis of the work that we do at Cradle and the basis for research in general. And development is just to continue to develop our product in a way that pushes it forward. And we have different teams, some different aspects of Cradle. We have a variety of different biologists, cellular, molecular, next-gen sequencing, technologists, engineers, and IT people that kind of come together to kind of collaborate together around our research questions to help build a product that at the end of the day will impact a woman's choice to empower her to make certain decisions about her health.
Interesting work. All three panelists come from a very interesting perspective. Let's get into the career pathways part. When it comes to research and development, if each of you could, and there probably is an overlap, if you could talk about the required skills and experiences within the positions of research and development, and where does someone begin when it comes to getting into research and development? I think that's a big question that a lot of our folks online are going to ask is, how do we get into this? What background do we need to have? I'm in college, what should I be studying? And interestingly, you should say it's not just the science, it's also IT. So what are some of the various career pathways that you see within your organization and within if in the startup situation and what you see in startups as compared to in Bachem type of company, what you see there? And again, let's stay with the research and development, whether we separate research skills and career pathways to development. And that's going to depend probably on the size of the company too. But whatever you would like to add in terms of the career pathways, what it takes to get there, any specific advice for this group of participants listening in. And why don't I this time start with Anna?
Let's talk about career path. I'm the first to share that I did not have a PhD and I'm not a scientist. Being a founder of a company, of a life science company, of a genetics company, not being a scientist, I think is a blessing in many ways. For a founder, the skills you need to have are about surrounding yourself with those smart scientists, which I know many of you guys are. So consider becoming a founder, consider doing your own company, either way. I'm an example of a life science founder without a life science degree. I came to this company by chance. As you can see, I like cats. And so it started with a personal passion. I really wanted to make sure that I can take care of my own pet better. I'm a huge proponent of following your passion, but also linking it with what we call commercialization, of being able to be successful and to make money. I, however, do have a fairly large science team. Out of the 15 people or so in the company, more than half work in our Torrance-based LA Biomed lab. And as you can imagine, there's lots of different folks. So we have people that do what we call scientists, and these are graduate students, either with a bachelor's or a master's. Actually, most of them have a bachelor's. These are scientists that have a bachelor's degree that come to us and they work at the wet lab. They don't necessarily do experiments. So if we're focusing on strictly R&D, the way that I think of R&D is I think of new products. It's developing a product that doesn't yet work. It's a very frustrating thing in science, but my initial scientists do not work in R&D. They are scientists that accept the samples that we come in. Probably Angel and I might have similar processes. A sample is collected and is sent into our lab and is processed by a science team. We like to bring people up in our company. So they usually start off as a scientist and then move on to being an R&D researcher. An R&D researcher, it takes about 2 years for scientists to graduate to be an R&D researcher, at which point I think their job becomes really fun. They're giving problems to solve. Some of those problems are really operational. This stuff is really expensive. Can you miniaturize some of the reagents, and can you miniaturize some of the way that you're working? Can you save some money for the company? That's a problem that we're always solving. And so we have people that are constantly working on ways to minimize costs. We have R&D scientists that are working on new products. Again, I think this is a really fun part of being with Basepaws. You're at a startup, so already things are a little chaotic, and you're working on new products. And any of you that has ever stood at a bench before, you very much understand science doesn't work on your timeline. I used to work a lot with developers. And if you're building, let's say, a website, or if you're coding and there's a problem, well, what do? You drink some Red Bull, you exhale, and you say, okay, that's it. And then 6 hours later, you solve the problem, because there's usually a solution. It's binary. Science is not binary. Very often, and it's happened with us, we would have a launch date of a new product, and we would miss the date. And we would put another date on, we would miss the date, and they would have, it's not our fault. We are just at the mercy of science. I think that as an R&D scientist, you have to have a little bit of thick skin. The folks on our team, the ones that are working in R&D, they don't mind making mistakes, and they don't mind having failures. I think more so than any other person in our company. And if that's who you are, if you don't mind it, it's probably a great job for you. It's quite different than being a lab bench scientist, where you become very good at mechanics and very good at volume. I do think you kind of have to pass through that role to go into R&D. Let's not forget that R&D in science very often doesn't mean the wet bench. You could be bioinformatics. We have quite a lot of people that work in bioinformatics as well. I think data science is an incredibly important part of any startup that does actually, I would say any startup period. In genetics, data scientists and bioinformaticians are incredibly important. So there's R&D that happens on the wet bench side, and if you're into that kind of stuff, joining a startup, you're going to have a lot of fun. But if you're not into doing things on the wet lab side, we're seeing a lot of interest and a lot of applications from data scientists that are also interested in solving problems. Because at the end of the day, R&D is for people that really love to solve problems.
Great. Thank you. That's a great start. Why don't we stick with the startups for the moment? Angel, would you like to show a little variety from what your experience, whether it's your current job or other ones that have R&D positions, and where would the entry be and the possible growth?
Definitely. So when I started to look into what direction I want to take my career and is whether to stick with academia or industry, one of the big driving factors for me was, how do I impact someone's health, and how do I get started in that? How do I, I think the first step was just talking to different people of different professions to see, kind of help me get a better informed decision process on what is it that I like and what is it that I don't like. And very quickly through that process, initially I wanted to become a doctor. Talking to researchers and people in the lab kind of sparked a whole different possibility for me in terms of being able to have a hand in creating therapies and drugs that would impact someone's quality of life in one way or the other. And so I think that kind of started me thinking about, how do I get there? What do I need to study to make sure that I can have opportunities that will get me work that is related to human health and human disease. And, I think maybe about 10 years ago when this was happening, biology was very much changing in the sense that there's a lot more information that is being produced, more genetic information. And so the requirement or the usefulness of being able to do computer science and to be able to leverage that technology in the benefit of biology was very, very just early, and it's still in an early phase relatively compared to other disciplines. But that's kind of really the environment that I started in. And so that's what I wanted. I was like, I need to study about biology, chemistry, and computer science, just very basic components in the fields that I knew that together in an interdisciplinary fashion could help become a valuable asset when it comes to drug development. And so when I started at startups and I started to apply, I very much stood out because of the varied background that I had to offer, not just to be able to do the lab bench work, but to be able to leverage computer science skills and programming skills to help build algorithms for drug design possibilities. And, that's kind of what ultimately has led me to Cradle. Over the years, I started from the lab bench, and as I got more skilled into experimental design and seeing the possibilities with computer science and next-gen sequencing specifically as an application of biology and computer science, we're able to see new ideas and possibilities with the technology. And specifically, Cradle is one instance of that application of applying biology and chemistry and computer science to the benefit of a diagnostic. In this case, it's pregnant women. And, when I look at the company in terms of the possible roles that I see available to me at a startup, not only am I working with a variety of different biologists that have a very different skill set, the very common skill set that I see them very, very valuable is to be able to communicate with each other in the different languages that each one has been trained in. So as a cellular biologist will speak very differently about the same problem as a molecular biologist compared to a computer scientist, someone, you know, that we all kind of come together to help build a common product. And kind of like what Anna was saying, our general process is sample collection to sample processing to sample analysis. And computer scientists come in mostly in the analysis portion, but even a step behind that, they kind of provide the infrastructure to help collect and organize all this information. And not just computer scientists, but engineers that help us automate some of our processes once we get them to a point that are mature enough that we think that they're reliable, we can automate these processes. And so we have a lot of different perspectives and career paths. And further down the line, when a product is mature, we have marketing departments that focus on how do we market this to product in the market. And, you know, I can go on and on about different possibilities, but those are kind of the core ones that come to mind, specifically at Cradle.
That's great. Thank you. Chris, how would it be different? Would the career paths be different when you're in a larger company and a company that's not doing the development per se? Or correct me, you know, if I'm wrong in using that terminology, but how would the career paths be different, and what are the options?
So let me first touch on the similarities, because what I heard from Anna and Angel there is something which is, I think, true in the entire life science field, is that this is a truly interdisciplinary field. So you don't have to, at an early stage, decide on if you're interested in biology or biochemistry or chemistry or microbiology, because all of these skills are very useful in the whole field, regardless of if it's a startup or a classical pharmaceutical company. The important thing is to keep an open mindset to the other fields, because in any situation, in any work situation you will be in the future, you won't be only interacting with people from your own discipline, from your own background, but you will be interacting with people from many different disciplines. And this is one of the most fascinating aspects about our jobs, is that you get to see so many different perspectives. And I'm glad that both Angel and Anna brought this up earlier. The main difference probably between an established pharmaceutical company of this pharmaceutical field and the startup field is that we are probably what you can call more old-fashioned. So titles and degrees still count a lot. So if we look at typical research positions in the pharmaceutical industry, there are entry-level positions. For instance, there would be a scientist position, which would usually require a PhD. There are senior scientist positions, which usually will require a PhD plus some additional postdoc training. So this is if you're really interested in doing fundamental research. However, there are many more entry-level positions. I don't know how well you can see the pictures behind me, like these people here, which are in the Bachem labs. These actually do not have any PhD titles. These are actually our apprentices. This is a picture from our Swiss side. So in the development area for pharmaceuticals, we do offer quite a few entry-level positions, and which are not directly involved into the fundamental research, but more in the product development. So this is about optimizing our product. So one way I like to describe it is like, for instance, with mobile phones, with smartphones nowadays, that if you have, it's not enough to bring out a good mobile phone. Say an iPhone 1, in 1 or 2 years time, you have to upgrade to the next one. I think we're at number 13 when it comes to the iPhones by now, and this is something similar that's going on in all of the industries. So we bring out products, but then we continuously have to improve and develop these products. and these are then positions, usually lab-based positions, which are accessible for people with a bachelor's degree. This is, for instance, a chemist position, or with a master's degree, also for chemist position. In addition to that, what we are also offering is an apprenticeship program here at our Bachem Torrance site, which actually does not have any degree as a requirement. And the philosophy behind of this is very similar to what also Anna referred to earlier. Basically, with the correct training, with the correct people, with the correct environment, you can make up for the formal training that is given, that you otherwise can receive from a degree.
That's great, and I'm glad you got the opportunity to talk about apprenticeships, because any of our pre-apprenticeships can flow into apprenticeships. And that is one of the areas that we are building, and Bachem is one of our champion companies who's helping us build these concepts. So that's great. Again, I don't know that I'm seeing things in the chat, but this is your chance to ask questions, folks. So
I also want to say that Basepaws has and have had, even from day one, a steady stream of interns, which I'm assuming is similar to an apprenticeship that Christopher was talking about. We love having interns. I would say 80% of our interns come on board as either full-time or part-time employees and contractors. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to get to know a company, for a company to get to know you. Even if you don't continue, like we've had some interns go on to do their bachelor's, we write excellent letters of review. And you know, anything from being a candy striper at a hospital to being an intern at a startup, I think is just a wonderful way to get to know different industries better.
I think that probably every single student on this program will be asking, how do I get an internship? So we will get back to that. In fact, I think one just came up. We will get back to that. We've already touched a little bit on this, but just to make sure we get through our agenda, the difference of research and development in startups versus mature organizations, you've all really touched on this already. But if you want to expand a little bit about environment, about culture, also about how pathways may be accelerated or decelerated, whether you're in a startup or you're in a more mature company, the variety of opportunities. And since you've covered a little bit of that, I'm going to also ask you to build in, where do you see mentorship? Where do you see networking, and how does one find those? So let's talk a little bit more about environment, and also where is that inspiration, that additional inspiration, and how do you get mentors? How do you get, what type of organizations should a student level person be part of? I know that's a lot, but let's see if we can, touch into that. And Chris, why don't we start with you this time?
Right. Yes. So I want to. I'll jump directly into the mentoring field, because this is an important topic, because a lot of the training that we actually receive, there's one part is the formal training. So if you work in a company, this usually comes in form of standard operating procedures, or SOPs. So most companies have a large number of these documents. They are paper-based and or in online nowadays. So you sit in front of a screen and you read these procedures, and then at the end you have to click a button to sign that you understood this procedure. But it is all of the research shows that studying this way is not the most efficient way to generate knowledge, but or to keep the knowledge and remember. But the much more efficient way is actually to be mentored, to be taught, and to have the experience on on the job. So this is why also when for new employees or also for employees moving to a new job, experiencing a new area, this is one of the most important features that we have, is an extensive on the job training, rather than only have it paper based in addition to the reading and understanding. So mentorship is very important. Could you repeat the other parts of your questions, because there were 2 or 3 more?
Sure. Back to the original question, which was the difference in the type of work in a mature company versus a startup, the environment, culture. How do you see the difference, and if you want, the pros, cons?
Yeah. So probably one of the main differences is also the workplace. So again, if you look at the pictures behind me, we have very large labs. They are actually manufacturing labs. So and the majority of the time that employee in a research or in a production environment is in these labs, handling equipment. These are I don't know if you can make it out on this picture. So this is an entire corridor filled with tanks to the left and right. And just in perspective, then the employee, who is about half the size of these equipment. So it's like it's a big industrial manufacturing setting. And you can also see in the example of this employee that he's completely clad in work clothes, completely in white clothes. This is in order to protect our employees from the possible chemicals, but also to protect the products that we make from any contamination that could be brought in by employees. So this is probably one of the main differences from a day-to-day situation of working in a large lab compared to smaller workplaces, which are probably have labs which look more like the typical lab that you'd have in a college or in a high school.
Great and wonderful point. And we can see the pictures, by the way, at least on my screen, I can see them. If some people are using their phones, it may be a little harder, but they are quite clear. So thank you for that. Whoops. Anna, would you like to comment on the topic of both the environment difference and then mentoring and networks, setting those up?
Sure. I'll start with environment. So a startup, you've got to have a tolerance for risk. You have to be okay with things being slightly chaotic and always changing. And it's very different for someone that comes from, for example, the world of academia, where things are pretty structured, or someone that comes straight out of school. We employ a lot of people that have just graduated, have their bachelor's in science, where you have the structure set up for you. And I say that now, I don't mean to be a downer, but not everyone is cut out for the startup life, and not everyone has to be. It's kind of a difficult place to be, but high risk, high reward kind of place. The way that a startup works is that you usually join a company that's very, very young, in the hopes that as part of your package, you receive not only a salary, but you also receive equity in the company. And if the company does well, that equity is worth very often a lot of money. Maybe you know the stat, 9 out of 10 startups fails. I thought that was just a stat when I first started in the startup world. Basepaws is my 4th startup, so I've been around the block 4 times. And I really thought that was just a stat. And I can absolutely see the value in that 9 out of 10 stat, because it is incredibly, incredibly hard to become that one startup out of 10 that succeeds. And the earlier you join, the more pressure is on you. Imagine you're the first scientist or the second scientist in the company. Angel, you probably joined when the company was smaller than 20 people, right? So you definitely know what that's like to be one of the very first people in a startup, creating plans, creating operational to-dos that others will follow in your footsteps. So a lot of pressure, but a lot of opportunity and responsibility. That applies for anyone in any startup, but I think it really, really applies to scientists. Being able to wear many hats is incredibly important. Again, going back to Angel, the fact that you're both an engineer, so you can code, and you're a scientist, I think people like that are, we have a few of those. They're like our unicorns, because, you know, when you're a small company, you really need to have people be able to do multiple things. So if you can do both, you know, development, coding, and, you know, science, I think that is just a perfect mix, especially for a startup. Maybe Christopher will say it's a perfect mix for a more developed company too. And of course, but especially for a startup, when you can do multiple things, that's great. So that's a little bit about our environment. I hope it didn't scare you off on joining a startup. It's quite a lot of fun, but also
realities are important, Anna. That's what we're here for.
And I often get asked, like, what's the lesson? What's the 5 things you can share? And our Basepaws has been very, very successful in a relatively short amount of time. If any of you have ever worked Shark Tank, we've been on Shark Tank multiple times. We have, you know, raised quite a lot of money from the show and from others. And if there is one thing that I can just share as like what makes a company successful that is just getting started. Basepaws is 3.5 years old. In one word, advisors. I think advisors are our secret weapon. And for any company that's just getting started, advisors is your secret weapon. And you as an individual, I think this world has become so connected, and it's so easy to find just the perfect person, especially on LinkedIn, to advise you. If you look at our website, we have a whole careers page, and in there we have all of our advisors listed. We're adding new ones all the time. So who is this advisor, this mystical thing? An advisor is someone that is an expert in their space. For Basepaws, it can be an advisor in animal health, animal therapeutics. It can be an advisor in genetics and genomics or microbiome specifically. It could be a veterinarian. It can be a founder of a larger company like us, someone we aspire to be. These are people that are successful, and they're successful, and financially they're well off. So they don't really care whether or not you're going to pay them. Of course, advisors, very rarely do you get anyone doing anything for free. That's good. It's not always that is the case, but very often it's hard to get really, really great service or great support for free. So a little bit of equity goes a long way with advisors, just tiny bit. And then you just have these experts, and they're there for you, and they're there for you no matter what. They'll pull you off the ledge when you're making a mistake. They'll be there to talk to when you just like can't close a deal or can't get an investor. They are opening up their black books, letting you have access to all of their contacts. They're helping you with decks. They're teaching you things that you might have not known. I mean, and again, when you're a small company, you really don't have a lot of money. So you're not paying these people. So you've got these like sumo wrestlers, these like Power Rangers that are there ready to help you. And I have really surrounded myself with folks like that. I'm a huge believer in LinkedIn. You know, it's hard to be a go-getter in terms of social media. Social media is not getting a lot of good rep right now, but I think LinkedIn is a really, really powerful tool. Get to know it really well. Cold write people. I have received so much from just writing cold on LinkedIn. Cold write people, tell them what you're interested in, ask them to be an advisor in a company that you're building, an advisor just in your own personal life. Say that you admire them, you want to be like them. It rubs egos in the right way, and it gets people to help. So, and this also applies to mentors. I think it's really, really important to surround yourself with mentors, no matter what stage of your career you're at. I especially want to emphasize here that I think folks that are in the R&D space, they tend to be a little bit more introverted. And it's just so important to get yourself out there. And again, it's a little bit easier with LinkedIn. You can kind of hide behind the social media. But if you think that you might be someone who is a scientist, really loves the bench, loves the work, might not like interacting with people, make yourself do it, because that one person that you cold wrote on LinkedIn in a few years can be your next big job opportunity, your co-founder, your investor, etc. I started doing startups. I'm not that old, but I started doing startups before there was really like a hard focus on something like a LinkedIn. And I'm just so blessed now that there's this tool that allows me to have connections with mentors and advisors.
That's great. Thank you. And I hope that everybody has gone into all three of these folks' LinkedIns, because they are fascinating career pathways on each of your LinkedIns. I know that Angel has definite opinions about mentors in small companies, and as well as in networking through organizations. So can you give us a couple of words on that?
Definitely. I think that mentorship is a very big component. It's been, one of the components that I can attest to of how it's only helped my not just career growth, but personal growth as well. And one of the pieces of advice about obtaining a mentor, kind of what Anna said, is reaching out to people. And specifically at Cradle, I knew that in my next career path, before I joined Cradle, when I was interviewing for Cradle, one of the big components that I wanted as part of the package was mentorship. I knew that when I look at my career path, transitioning out of the lab into more higher level director roles, in my head, I was like, I need some guidance. I want some guidance for people that have made that transition to speak about what that's like. And simply when going through interviews and talking with the executives at Cradle, I asked for it. And I think I wouldn't have gotten the opportunities to be mentored by some of the executives if I hadn't really asked for it. And it's mostly, they want their people to succeed. Successful people want other successful people to succeed as well. And I think people are willing to share what they have gone through. Not necessarily that it's going to be applicable to you, but it's just one instance of what's possible. And conversations like those don't really get started until you initiate it. At the very least, someone will say no, but it's not a big deal. You just go on and move to the next person. And I think that's very emblematic of what a startup or any successful person, whether at academia or industry, is just being able to make that first difficult move and just ask someone or reach out to someone. And for the most part, people are very helpful.
Great, thank you. Do you have any organizations that you think these folks should be looking at, as far as student organizations where they can network?
Definitely. So even before Cradle, I was part of Biotech Connection Los Angeles, and I joined them with the intention, just very broad intention. I want to know more about what's available in Los Angeles for me. And it's a student-run organization. They recruit people from all different universities across LA, and not just college, but high schoolers as well. And, you're able to meet other people that have the same drive to get to learn what the industry is about. You get to meet a lot of new people, whether it's, beyond scientists. You get to see all the other aspects of what goes into what makes science possible, what makes getting one product from the lab into the market. And through that experience and being and volunteering with them for the past few years has increased my network greatly. I mean, I've met Anna before, and I've got to hear her speak about her journey with Basepaws, and I think you get to see and hear so many stories about so many people's career trajectories that I think only adds excitement and value to your own thought process about what's possible for what you can do in science if it's something that you're interested in.
Fabulous, fabulous. And I know that Anna would add, and then once you see these people, you go on to LinkedIn and tell them how much you enjoyed them and that you would like to connect with them and follow them, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. One is from Jacqueline Alba, who is a graduate of the BioFlex program. She's asking, what made you realize research was the route you wanted to take? Now, Jacqueline, is this directed to one person or to everybody?
Just to everybody.
To everybody, okay. Would anybody like to answer that? Chris?
Yeah. Yes, I'd be glad to go ahead. So it basically for me started off with high school just as an interest in chemistry. So when I finished high school, I was, I want to go to college, and I wasn't quite like most people, not 100% sure what I like. So I just thought I'd get into chemistry. Can't really do anything wrong. This is a big field. And as I studied chemistry, I got more and more interested in this biomedical sector. So the sector where actually the drugs and new pharmaceuticals are developed. And I went on to get a PhD and a postdoc. But then at one stage, I was at this, what Angel already described, like where you the decision: do I want to stay in academia, work in research institutions at universities, or do I want to go to industrial position? And then looking back, I realized that what I actually enjoyed more than the research itself, and Angel already said this, is like actually making things, like actually producing things, building things. So my current job entails making actual pharmaceutical compounds, and I'm still fascinated every time I see like a complete final product. They usually look like a white powder, come in bottles, and I just hold them and think, wow, in a few weeks' time, there's a person somewhere in the world who will be taking this as a pill or having this as an injection to help them with their disease. And I'm holding this product in my hand right now. And this is actually a fascinating experience, being in the pharmaceutical industry, being able to help millions of people with these products that we make with our two hands.
I have a feeling that's kind of a ditto for Angel and for Anna. Is there anything you'd like to add to that question? Because we have one more and time is getting a little short, but what made you realize research was the route you wanted to take? I think, Angel, you've already answered that in talking before, but does anybody want to add to that?
I'm just so impressed with Christopher's answer. You just really inspired me. And I think you've inspired everybody on the call with that. I also want to be part of the solution for people's health and their pets' health as well.
Right. And Angel, I know, said that. We have two questions from Elsie, who is a current BioFlex pre-apprentice. And Elsie, I'm going to ask you to explain your first question a little bit. It says here, for product and development in pharmaceutical, are graduates able to work in the clinical phase areas as well? If the three of you understand that question better than I do, terrific. Otherwise, we'll ask Elsie to clarify. Can anybody answer it as is?
I think for me, with Cradle specifically, because we do have incoming clinical samples, we do have certain personnel that are specifically trained to handle potentially hazardous material. And I think before there is a clinical licensed scientist certification that some people or some laboratories get for more established clinical settings. For me at Cradle, because of my background and because of the training that I've had before, I don't need that specific type of certification, but for someone coming in, for clinical settings, there usually is a little bit extra coursework required just to be able to be able to work in a lab setting like that, just to basically understand how to protect yourself and how to protect others in the lab in that environment.
So the title you're kind of giving that she might look up is clinical laboratory technician. Does that sound about right?
Yes, it's a CLS.
CLS, okay.
Certification.
Okay, so Elsie, we do have some information on that if you need it. And another question, which is good for, I'm surprised nobody asked this earlier, is what tips do you give graduates or undergraduates who are working on their resume to apply to jobs to stand out, since companies receive a lot of applications? And why don't I start with Chris on the big company end? What would you say? How do you stand out in your?
Hi, can you still hear me? Because I think I just lost the last part of
You're
the
there.
audio there.
Oh,
Okay.
Did you hear me? Did you hear my question?
If you could just repeat the last part, because you cut out slightly.
Sure. What would you say is the best way for somebody getting ready to look for work or a graduate to put on their resume? How do they make their resume stand out? Since companies receive a lot of applications, how does one stand out?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this isn't a secret. The best way is always through a referral. So if you know somebody in the industry or in the field or in the company, that is one of the best ways. In case you do not have that opportunity, one advice that I always give is apply early, because usually for interesting positions there are so many candidates, and most people do a very thorough screening of the resumes, but at a certain stage then the earliest applications have the highest chance of being actually reviewed and moved to the next round. Because also as a hiring manager, if you've seen like 50 resumes, then you'll probably think, okay, I'll first select of this pool of 50 candidates before I then move on to the next 50. But actually, I would be interested in Anna's advice on LinkedIn regarding this, because I think that the old-fashioned Word paper-based resume is probably becoming obsolete.
Good point. And I was going to go to Anna next. What advice would you have on resumes? And please hit social media as well as how are people receiving resumes today? And what should they do to stand out?
So my number one advice before we jump into LinkedIn, number one by far, is follow up. You send it once, you don't hear back, follow up again. We have so many applicants, we're so busy. To stand out, really the only way I've seen over my many years of hiring is badger us. Be almost borderline annoying, because it shows me two things. It shows me that you're passionate about the role and that you are assertive. And those two things, no matter what role you're in, are really key. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a great place to go to look for work. Of course, there's different job boards depending on the industry. You've got these behemoth job boards like Indeed and ZipRecruiter. But I do think that LinkedIn is the place to go to look for work, because the most innovative companies focus on recruitment using LinkedIn. So you'll see jobs there. And it's also really easy to see, do you know anyone that works for that company? To Chris's point, it's definitely, unfortunately, we're still in the world of who do you know? So LinkedIn allows you to easily see who you know in that company. And if you don't know anybody, at least you'll have a cursory overview of who works there. Who is the person interviewing? Get to know the person in HR, get to know your manager. Those things are actually quite important. You can hear I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I think it's a fantastic tool. And the better you know how to use it, like any tool out there, it's complex, the more value it will bring you.
Thank you. Angel, some advice for you. How does someone stand out?
So I mean, Chris and Anna hit it really well. I think one thing that I would add to that is I think doing a little bit of research on your end about the company, and being able to create a connection between what you have to offer with what the company could benefit from you. And in the beginning, it may not be so clear, given probably not an extensive amount of experience, but sometimes it helps to bring that enthusiasm into the workplace and to be able to make connections between different things. So like if you have a company that excites you and you are excited about it and you have some research elements or some aspects of some skills that you think could be useful, interviewers, at least from what I've experienced, it's exciting to see candidates to go above and beyond, be able to know the company, be able to make connections between what they have to offer with what the company is doing. And because it shows, even in a startup environment, when things are changing so quickly, it shows that you can adapt, you can do the research, you can take initiative, and that you have the energy and the motivation to be able to, weather any sort of changes that may happen, and they happen very, very frequently at a startup. And so those are very valuable skills. And to be able to, one important aspect is communication, to be able to communicate things clearly and to be able to convey a complex idea, or, just even generate a few ideas is just a good way to stand out.
Fabulous advice. I think this has really been terrific, and I want to thank the three of you tremendously. We're at a little after 5:30. So what I'm going to say is that we do a follow-up, everybody that's on this call. We do a follow-up email, as you know, from Amelia. It will again have how these three folks are open to your contacting them, whether it's through LinkedIn or whether it's through email or both. You will have that information in her follow-up email. This is recorded, so it will be available to anybody who wants to listen to it in the future. Our next program is December 2nd. It is the one where we're going to inspire everybody on what type of pathways related to the life science are in the environmental world. It may be in the water, it may be in space, it may be in recycling. I'm not going to tell you yet what it's going to be. And also in the food sciences. What are what's happening in food science? And what about all this so-called fake food? And we already have a speaker from that area, and we will be sending that out to everybody as soon as we have our full complement. So thank you, the three of you, very, very much to Chris and to the folks at Bachem that are listening in. And by the way, participants, the head of talent acquisition from Bachem is listening in. Anna, thank you and your cats for this fabulous presentation. Angel, you've been an angel to us more than once. You've spoken with our groups more than once, which we really appreciate. Participants, these folks might be your next mentor for all you know. So thank you. If anybody still has questions or comments, feel free to send them to Amelia, and we will do our best to get it out to our three panelists. Again, thank you and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.